Red Rose, yo, how are you? I'm good, bro. Yeah, all good here, thank you. Not too bad. Bit of a strange trading day on Forex, but it's all good otherwise. Haven't been able to get to the gym today, which sucks. Blinky is here, yo. Just gonna give it 5 minutes as usual or so to let more people get in. I'm trying to send this to people. I don't understand. I need a streamer starting intro. Yeah, I do. I've got one actually. Yeah, I'm going to start doing that from next week. I've been really stacked with other stuff getting in the way of little things like that. I need to get like a new banner as well sorted. I've got that like ideas in mind. Yeah, but that's a good shout. Thank you. I've got one. I just need to get it all sorted. All right. Market has been wild. Yeah, they've been kind of crazy. Good fun. It's nice. It's way better when it's like this. I saw your reply, by the way, about sharing first setup or first technical analysis. I've actually got, I don't know if I've got like, excuse me, my very first stuff, but I've definitely got an email from maybe 2016 that I sent my mate, and he was like the one that introduced me to supply and demand trading. And I've got some emails where I've sent him stuff like, "Oh, is this correct?" And looking back at it, it is not correct, but I'll share that on Twitter. I'll reply to you later. Yeah, there's a lot of good setups at the moment. I'm still long Ethereum. I closed my trade on Bitcoin where it hit TP this morning, which was not actually overnight it hit, which was really nice, waking up to that. So yeah. Hey, are you the same Matt that was previously in PTG? Yeah, that's me, bro. Which Chris are you? We had a couple of Chris's. I was telling Linky about that the other day, actually, about BTG. No one knows who I am these days. It's quite nice, but kind of frustrating at the same time. I remember a Chris we had who was a Kiwi. I think. All right, a few more minutes. Let's let a few more people get in. Oh, awesome, mate. I was in that group for a few months. You were solid, mate. Always enjoyed your live stream. Subbed. I'm from Midlands. Nice one, Chris. Appreciate that. Good times. There was, yeah, it was great. That was a great group. We were pretty popular, to be fair. We had a lot of people in there, and a lot of people that are on X now with big accounts. Like I left in 2020, and there were a lot of people that were paying members of the group that have now got like hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, which is mad to see that kind of stuff, to be honest, since I got back. Background at BTG explains a lot. Different levels of knowledge than most. Thanks, man. I have been doing this a long time as well, and I've never deviated away from this style. I've always I've like literally always followed supply and demand. So if someone's following me now from the BTG days, I've kind of toned down the terminology a little bit just to try and make it a little bit more objective so that everyone can understand it. But I literally do the same thing. Like I've been doing the same thing for the past 10 years. I've never bothered with indicators. Thankfully, I had a friend who just got involved with the right stuff, and he was maybe like a year or so ahead of me into trading, and he just said, don't worry about all this crap, just focus on this style of trading. And like I've been through it, don't worry, it doesn't work, just do this. And I've just always stuck to that. So yeah, it should be pretty consistent content. Not a bad thing to say about my experience there. Quite short-lived. Yeah, it was a good group. We had a really good education section. We had a really good like record with trades, like trade calls and stuff. So yeah, we had a lot of members making a lot of money. Always brought you in. Thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate it. Right, okay, let's jump into the charts and talk about what's going on. So if you've watched the video earlier today, you would see most of my thoughts. But when I made the video this morning, there wasn't as much price action as there was today. There's obviously been a retrace, which we can see from this daily time frame, but there's a couple of levels I want to talk about and where I'm looking to trade from and what we can expect. So I'll just run through the higher time frame stuff just to give us a context. So we have obviously the previous all-time high that got broken, and then at this point here is basically where the buying took place. And by the way, like this entire screen is going to get bigger soon. I've asked the guys at Watt to be able to extend this. I can't bring this bit down. So at some point soon, this is going to get fixed and we're going to have a bigger screen. So this is where the buying took place to break the all-time high. So this is the last key level before the break. I don't expect we'll come back down there, but if it does somehow come down there, and it's not in the realms of impossible, that would be a really nice level. And that's probably where everyone's going to start freaking the fuck out if it comes back down there. So if we jump to H4 next, and then we can see things a little bit cleaner. So this was the previous all-time high, and then sitting there just below it is a decision point to come and break the all-time high. So this is the key level. If it was on this time frame, it's a lot cleaner. If it's to come down, this would be a great level. Like this would be the deepest retrace level for me on this move, where the market structure changes if it gets broken. But jumping on H1 afterwards, I don't think it's going to come back down there. But if it does, this is honestly like a really nice level to look for a reversal from. And like I said, normally at those points where there is a huge amount of like fear in the market, and at a point where the market structure does change, it's normally the best risk reward. So that's a pretty clean level. But mostly what I want to talk about is on H1, which we've got here. So what has happened is we've ranged obviously below the all-time high, broken out, ranged, and then broken out again. And we have a few levels here. And for those that were in BTG like Chris, this is what I used to call an FTR, failure to return. And that basically means that price is pushed up, dropped down and then failed to return to where it came from, and it just basically continued pushing up. It's a very key continuation level, but prices just absolutely ripped. So I'm not going to keep that marked, but it is another important level essentially. But I think this price action is a little bit more key and relevant. So first of all, what we've got is price pushes up, drops down, and then pushes back up. So technically we have a range here that price has just kind of bounced from and meandered sideways at the top of it. So it's been like a nice SR flip in a way, and then it's pushed back up. So that's the overall range. And then if you like, it has put in a range here as well, where it's kind of done the opposite, where it's put the range in and then it's kind of meandered at support, put in loads of higher lows and then broken up. So this is really nice, and that's a decent amount of context. But this range that I've just marked is essentially being held up by this point here. And that, in the same way as that H4 level, I would look at this as a point where that is the deepest retrace point. You've got a really clear and big move to the upside, which is essentially separating the previous price action from this price action. The way I was taught it was they're called price action zones. So essentially what you get is you have a trend where it goes sideways, comes up, goes sideways, comes up, goes sideways, comes up. And then the areas in between these levels are basically empty space. Like that. So we have like an empty level there. I believe in ICT language, this is called a fair value gap. I think, I'm not too sure, but I don't trade ICT. But the way I was taught is this is a price action zone. And normally what you will see is if it enters the price action zone on one side and breaks into it, it's going to travel to the next price action zone. And the best trades are typically around the boundaries of these price action zones. So what we have essentially here is this is the price action zone boundary, and then this is the other price action zone boundary. So this for me is like the last point, again, similar to that previous level, where if price comes down here, it's going to change the market structure. So it's really nice to look for some sideways price action and a reversal up here for a continuation on a higher time frame to the upside. So that's the first level. That's like my dream level in this situation here. I closed the trade at 120K and it did overshoot it a little bit, but I think what it wants to do is reload. Excuse me. I like wolfed down a load of beef before I jumped on, which is why I was a little bit late. So if it comes down here, this is a really nice level, in my opinion, to go long from. It's got a really good risk reward, but it's not guaranteed it's going to come down there because it has found a lot of strength. So the next interesting level for me is this one here. And I'll just mark the whole of it, which is obviously we've seen a little bit of a bounce from it to the upside. So this was that range high. I'm just going to mark that in a different color. This was that range high, and price has broken up above it and then ranged sideways and then broken out to the upside. Normally when you see this, it wants to come back down and retest it and put in maybe another higher low and potential reversal situation. So here, I'm just going to wait for the price action to build a little bit more. Technically, in a strong trend, you can take these levels and you normally wouldn't see it build up. You'd just kind of see it spike and continue. But I think given the fact that the move is looking rather overextended, and the fact that Bitcoin, it takes a lot more money to move Bitcoin these days compared to how it used to, I believe it kind of trades a little bit more like the legacy markets and tends to go a little bit deeper. So I'm not saying like take a trade on this level. Actually, I'm not saying take a trade at all because this is not financial advice. But for me, I would not be rushing to enter here. I'd be rushing, I wouldn't rush it, but I'd be starting to plan for down here more. Or what it could do is, you know, come in between them essentially. But to me, all of this is just kind of gunk. It's nothing that important. It wants to come usually to the boundaries, either the top boundary or the bottom boundary, and then that's the best place to look for reversals. So that's my plan. I'm not keen on it here, if I'm honest. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but I'd rather see, considering the fact that all of this has gone choppy sideways over the weekend, I would expect some sort of similar situation at this point here. So my plan is basically now just to let it chill out. It's moved a lot. It's moved something like 109,000, like, yeah, $10,000, $15,000 very quick. And that's like a 15% move, which is quite a lot on Bitcoin these days. Compared to like the old days, it's nothing. So yeah, that's kind of my plan, is just to wait and see, let the price action develop. It will be very obvious in the same way for me, like down here, this is where my trade was. It forms sideways for a long time, and it's like this is the first signal. Normally you'd see it just rip, but crypto these days tends to like give that signal, act a little bit more like the legacy market, and then start showing signs. And it's when they become a little bit more undeniable, when we've been going sideways for ages and people are kind of getting a little bit fatigued. That's when the best entries seem to present themselves. So I'm just waiting for this to drop down a little bit further, go sideways. But you know, it might be tomorrow, it might be the day after it does continue. But this is essentially how we trade in price discovery, because if you're here at this point, you've got nothing to the left. How do you know if you can long this big candle, for example? You don't. So what is best to wait to happen is for the trend to start going, moving sideways, giving some resistance, giving some support levels. And then just like in the way this has happened here, you know, we've put a trend top in and then it goes sideways, breaks this kind of like support down here, which I'll just mark. And then I'll zoom in as well. It kind of goes sideways, puts in some lows. So it puts a low here, puts a high in here, which is kind of equal to this one. Higher low, higher high technically, because it has broken this little one here. Another couple of higher lows, and then it makes a higher high and then starts pushing up. So you have to wait for that to happen. And it's going to be the same situation here, where we're going to need like some price action to tell us what the market wants to do next. And it could be like it does nothing for a little while, and then it breaks out to the upside, catches some people out, and then it goes on the second attempt. Like, that's a made up scenario, but it could happen. So that's essentially what I'm waiting for on Bitcoin. Now, if we look at Ethereum, I'm still in the long here, oops, but I have trailed my stop, so we'll talk about that. And I'm just going to keep this because I know you guys have seen me talk about this for weeks. Some of you haven't, who haven't been here, but I will cover it quickly. Essentially, we have a supply zone here, and then big support / demand at this point. Let me just... Big demand at this point. So this is where the decision was made to come and break this support. And this support is key because it's where the decision was made, and you can see a huge zone formed here. The decision was made to make new highs. So you would expect, after the trend, you would expect on a retest of it that it would drop down, but it doesn't. And it's currently in the process of breaking higher. Below it, just in the same way that Bitcoin did as well, on H4, we have this range. And it's been a really clean range. This is exactly kind of like the price action you want to trade. So it pushes up, trend sideways, can't break to the downside, can't break to the upside, does attempt to break to the upside, but hits the extreme of this level here. Like I said, remember about those price action zone boundaries. This is the price action zone boundary that is gravitated towards, and it's tapped, comes down and puts in a low, but it immediately pushes back into the range and then pushes higher above the range. It should be dropping, but it's not. And it's particularly bullish because it's confirmed high above this zone. And now it's kind of flagging a little bit. So jumping down to H4, so we would be bullish on this basically up to like this point here, which is 4,000. There's a lot of empty space, but again, we have a bit of turbulence here. So that would be my target for the move. This is kind of where I'm hoping to get my trade to, assuming that it's not going to stop me out on a trailed stop. But there's a lot of clean space. This for me isn't really that important. Again, like from a price action zone level, you've got the extreme here gets broken and then retraces. So it is somewhat relative here, but here is where the real sell-off happened, which is a reaction to this level, which is a reaction to this level. So yeah, and even then, this is a reaction to this level. So that's why I'm saying I think it can go all the way up here. Dropping down to H4, so we have that in mind, that it does indeed look bullish. We have similar kind of price action to Bitcoin with decision points. So this is that high that I've just been talking about. At this level here, we have sitting on top of this daily range also. So it's like added significance is the decision point. This is where the buying took place to push above this resistance level. So this is a key level on this time frame, on the H4 time frame. This is actually where I would add another trade. I'd be looking for a reversal down here because everyone's going to go, it's dropped down the resistance, this is faked out, blah, blah, blah. At this point, similar to the one I talked about on Bitcoin, if it puts in a kind of W reversal where it puts in a high, high, low, high, 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 low, and then it breaks out, I'm looking to get long. But again, it's also the point where if it does break and then starts putting in the opposite of what I just said, and it starts putting in some lower lows and stuff and some lower highs, this would be what I would consider a break in market structure where we start looking for shorts, but probably only down to this like daily range low at about 2,400. But I'll be honest, I don't think that's going to happen based on the strength of this move. But that is a really nice level. If we get that, that is a yeah, like an A+ level to look for trades from. It just depends whether we're going to get it or not, because if we drop down now to H1, we can see a different picture where we have our range here. So we trend up, put in a retrace low, and then push up above the trend high again, just to confirm this range. And then as you can see, goes sideways around the middle of the range, hits the bottom of the range, hits the top of the range from that, goes to basically the midpoint, and now has broken up above the range high. So again, same type of thing with the price action zone boundaries. This has been a really clean move to the upside, and this is now kind of entering a new section of price action, if you like. Considering its sideways nature, though, I would probably expect to see what we saw. Where was it? It might have been on the higher time frame, actually. Yeah, it was. Here, where it puts in a series of higher lows and it breaks to the upside. Was it here? Oh, no, sorry, it was down here. It's the same thing because the price is fractal, but it's exactly the fucking same. So pushes up, goes sideways, pushes up, gives another signal to go up, but then it sweeps all the lows, bounces off the support here, and then pushes up. So it may well be on H1 we get the same type of thing because the price action is looking relatively similar, and the behavior with assets is usually the same. So this could come down, give us another signal, but then just one last time, fuck everyone over, and then rip to the upside. That is a situation which I'm also looking out for. should it not come back down to this level down here. And now, as you can see on H1, the zone I would mark it out like this, right at the bottom, the extreme. So these are two scenarios I'm looking for on Ethereum for it to like come down and then keep pushing up. And my stop is at 2880. My original TP was at 2880, and I said I'll let it. It looked like it's bullish. I wanted to just let it. I took the TP off and let it move higher with the intention of then trailing my stop and hoping I'll get a little bit of luck. So my trailed stop for about 2.5 hours is there. So preferably I'd like to see this happen where this whole level stays intact, and then I can add to a second position on a continuation here. Otherwise, comes the breakdown, and then maybe we'll see something similar down here. But this is a really nice level. It's my preferred level in terms of like if I wasn't in a trade and I want the best RR and I want the best confidence that this is reloading to push up, it would be this level. Otherwise, yeah, the continuation at this range. And it's really nice at this point. And we may well be in a situation as well where the trends are so strong that it just kind of, it just kind of diagonals and then rips up like that. That's kind of a situation I'm looking at on Bitcoin as well. So yeah, there's that. And then finally, we'll look at Solana, and we'll go on the daily. And again, I did put this in the video this morning, but I'll just very quickly run through it for those that haven't seen it. Big lows down here. And then we have really big high at this point. So nice resistance. So this is where the sell-off happened to come take out this support. Fakes it down below and then pushes all the way back up to it, and then it kind of respects it. It goes down. Like if I'm at this point here, you can see push up, breaks to the downside, can't push back up, and then breaks back to the downside with a lot of momentum. It puts in like some lower highs and then a lower low. This would be a really clean short. And I would have expected it to come down to 95.3, something like that, at these lows at the least. But the fact that it doesn't, what it does instead is it bounces off of this level here, which again is the very extreme, the deepest retrace level, the edge of the price action zone. It bounces off here. I'm just marking the bottom wick to the open of the candle body. This is where the buying took place ultimately to come and test this high, because it's what broke this supply zone here. And that supply zone wasn't that key because it really didn't do much, but it was where the sell-off came to put a lower low in. You would expect price to push up and then drop down, but it doesn't. And then on retest, it's actually flipped it, and now it's looking bullish. And remember, this is the daily as well. Similar to this supply zone, we have this supply zone here, which has been taken out, and it's now reacting from the underside of this supply zone, this range. You can see the flip, the SR flip is really clean. So if we look on H4, and then let's just refine this as well a little bit to make it look a little bit cleaner. Second attempt, well, it's kind of the third attempt at pushing up, and it breaks up finally, only to hit the underside of that supply zone, aka that daily range. Hits it once, pushes up, hits it twice, and then I expect this low will be a higher low, and then it's going to break up to the upside. So we'll look at that on lower time frames in a moment. But again, we have what I'd call an FTR or a flag limit, which is essentially the very extreme decision point, failure to return, or just a range that forms on the break of this resistance. And that is kind of holding price up at the moment. It's tested it once, pushed up higher and made a higher high. may come down and reload at this level, and then we look for reversals again to go higher, but I am leaning bullish. But again, if this breaks, then it looks to me at that point, you know, we have a market structure break. It would look to me at that point that this level didn't hold us down, but this level has managed to. So all of this is just a fake out, get everyone long, get everyone into a bull trap, and then breaks down. But it hasn't broken this level yet. And then we have a second level down here to worry about. But it is a point where it's like, oh, this trend is kind of stop, and the market structure is broken if this level gets broken. H1, you can see this is all reacting from down here. So the chain, you can see here, 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 here. So your support is all the way down here. Okay, that's the chain. All these levels are just reacting off of one another. There's no clear impulse, like I said on the other charts. So it may not hold specifically, but I do think on the higher time frames or the medium time frames, this looks super clean. Not so clean on this time frame because this trend isn't the best, but it's strong enough, and the rest of the market is probably going to be pulling it up by its pants, essentially. More locally, we have a trend up, we have a range that has formed here, and then it's broken down out of the range, bounced off of this support, puts in some higher highs, higher low, and then pushes to the upside. So now what we have here sitting on the underside of the daily range is another range. Let's just mark it like that. I don't know if you can see that color. Let's just do yellow. So similar to what we said on Ethereum on H4, it may come down to the deepest level and start putting in some price action that looks bullish, which wouldn't surprise me considering this is all kind of scrappy price action, and everyone's probably getting a bit of FOMO, and everyone's kind of getting a little bit like, I need to get into the markets. Or it could just come up again like a little fake out, like we just discussed on the higher time frame, puts in another high low, and then puts a series of high highs in, and then we can go long from this point with our risk defined below this range. So that, again, similar to Ethereum, where we look for continuations, or we're going to look for the deepest retrace possible, and then we look for a reversal to go long. But I'm leaning bullish. No reason not to at the moment, in my opinion. But we need a bit more price action before I'm sitting here going, yeah, let's get involved, boys. But that's kind of my plans, essentially. Does that make sense? Do any of you have any questions? Let's go from there. And if you want me to look at any other charts afterwards, let me know. That's one of the things I appreciate. This price action zone stuff is interesting. Thank you. Yeah, it's something, once you train your eye to it, you'll understand where the best levels to look from trades are. Like those ones on Bitcoin are really clean. Oh, why is this not? I think my browser's frozen. Just give it a sec. My computer keeps doing this at the moment. I need to clean out my computer. It just randomly like increases to CPU. Bonk and XRP. Yeah, we'll look at them as soon as this gets back to working. You guys still hear me okay, yeah? Hmm. Are we still there? You can still see me? Okay, cool. Sorry, my browser like completely froze. So I couldn't see the chat and I couldn't see the charts. Cool. It doesn't, because I don't trade on the like the only time I trade on the browser is when I'm trading with what, and I'm usually trading like H1 or H4. When I'm trading on Forex, I'm trading on M1 and M5, but I'm not using the browser. Okay, so yeah, like this is Ethereum. You can see, to go back to the point I was trying to make, the price action zones. Once you can see them, you just kind of look out for. I think in ICT language it is fair value gap that they would call it. But the way I learned it, it's like two different sets of price action. You've like separated by a big clear space, and you want to be looking at the boundaries of it, essentially. So yeah, let's look at Bonk. Is it down here, or do I have to search? There we go. Okay. Oops. Keep doing that. Yeah, it's looking good. It is, if we put in this big low, and then we have the selling that took place here. This is the key level that you want it to break and confirm above to look for the bullish trend to continue. But it looks like it will. It's got a lot of strength. It's come and hit it once, twice, 3 times. This is kind of like the 4th time it's come up to hit it. So you would expect it's going to continue. And then I would say the next level is there, but this is all kind of a reaction to this point. So that's not to say that it won't experience like a little bit of turbulence at this point. But you can see this level has been consumed. So here's the level, 1, 2 taps already. So you'd imagine on a 3rd tap, the retrace won't be as deep, but it will then look to break it. So I'd be looking for that level on this time frame. On H4, you have a nice range here, like that, and it's sitting at this resistance. It's also sitting at the top of these highs. The real patience game is if it comes back down to test these lows and then gives a continuation like that. That's how I'd look to play it on this time frame, because on the previous range there, you can see similarly it came up. It's almost at the same kind of point here to here, and then it may sweep the lows and then push back up like this and give us continuation there, and then this is your range where you define your risk. But this looks good. This would be the lowest point I think it would retrace to. But it's got a clean set of like higher highs and higher lows like this, so the channel is moving up. So yeah, that is nice. I don't know if you want me to go on a lower time frame, but the picture is going to be the same. Excuse me, I shouldn't have had that Pepsi. But even on H1, you know, if you're watching on that time frame, again, you've got another range sitting at the top of this range, that could, well, you know, sweep this low, fake it, whatever, and then push up like so. So yeah, like it's nice. I would always prefer to wait for the retrace and have a clean break with some strong momentum like that. So you're marking a resistance zone based on the last push up into sells that go to take lows / support, correct? Yeah, so I have a video on it on my YouTube channel. It's called How to Trade Price Action for Intermediates or something. Basically, if it was on H4, let's do daily then, because it might be on the daily. Yeah, it was on the daily. If you look at the concepts and the fundamentals of supply and demand zone trading, so you have a range essentially, and you have a breakout, and then that would be a demand zone, or you have the range and then a breakout, and then that would be a supply zone. You know, this is where the selling happens, this is where the demand happens. You know, the concept of supply and demand, when there's too much supply, prices come down, and when there's too much demand, the prices go up. So essentially, when you get a retest on these levels, you would expect this base to bounce essentially, but you can see them anywhere. You can see these sideways price action zones literally anywhere on the chart, but not all of them are key. So what I have said in that video is the levels that are key, like this one here, are the levels where buying or selling took place to break another level. And that other level could just be a low, like in this instance. It could be another demand zone. It could be another supply zone. It could just be, like I said, a big high or a big low. But those levels are typically where price gravitates to. And then if you jump down around them, and you can see this concept here. So price has gone sideways and then broken out to the upside on a retest of this level, because you would say this is where the selling should have taken place to continue to move down, but it doesn't. It fakes the lows and then breaks to the upside, puts in a higher low, and then it puts in a higher high. So you would say this is a key level because the buying has been strong at this point. The sellers couldn't push the price down. And then again, using supply and demand principles, where you'd say there's resting orders at this level. So if you've bought like a low cap shitcoin, for example, and the price is going sideways, and you know, let's say the market cap is like 50,000 or something, you put one Bitcoin in, price just goes boom, like that, and you wouldn't have your entire order filled because it's so illiquid, right? So when price naturally comes back down to it, if you've not removed your orders, let's say you get filled half a Bitcoin on the push up and you've got half a Bitcoin still in resting orders, it's going to go back up. And that is essentially the principle for these levels here. So if you have an X amount of buying that pushes price up above the resistance, on a grander scale, not everyone's got their orders filled. So on a retest, you would expect price to bounce. But it's also showing other buyers that there is a lot of interest in this level. And if it comes back down to it, it's a great place to buy from, because the market is saying here it is undervalued, so we need to push it up. But that's kind of like the principle of it. So I mark those levels, the demand zones and the supply zones, but the key ones are the ones that break other supply and demand zones, or a big low or a big high, essentially. Okay, does that make sense? But like I said, there is a video explaining the concept a little bit in more detail with better visuals than a little pen tool on here that essentially just explain like all of that and how to mark them and everything. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, got it. What's up, Doc? Hello. I know who you are. Pepsi Max over Coke Zero. Yes, I agree. I'll check out the vid. Nice one. Yeah, there's a price action for beginners and price action for intermediates. I'm going to do a price action for advanced, and then I'm going to stick it all together in like one big masterclass, essentially, when I can get around to it. All right, let's look at XRP because Linky was talking about that. Yeah. And I'm actually glad, even though this is a relatively new exchange, obviously there's years and years worth of history in XRP, but the chart, if memory serves me right, just looks like this. Right, daily. Let's look at, you don't need all of that either. The thing is with these, a lot of these altcoin cycles is that they become largely irrelevant by the next one anyway, which is why you see higher prices. But we've got a really clean range that has formed like that, and it's come into the upper side of that range. Locally, in the middle of the range, we have this resistance here, which is a test of this resistance here. This is where the selling took place to come and break the lows. So there's your key level. If you just, all you have to do with price action trading is just read from right to left. And if some of you guys are Muslim, then you know you're pretty used to that, or Japanese. But what you do is you have the trend high, the trend low. You break to the upside. It comes down here, tests the support, pushes back up to the range high, comes to the range low, can't break it, pushes back up to the range high in one candle, and then sells off, and then it retraces, and then this retrace is where the selling took place to come and make two lower lows. So that's your key level in the context of this range. And as you can see, it already gets tested and gets pushed back down. And then going back to the supply and demand zone principles, where you've got sideways and then you've got a big breakout, where you have the resting orders. Sometimes, let's say you have one Bitcoin that's pushed price like this, and you've had like 0.7 Bitcoin has been filled. On a retest, you've got 0.3, and then suddenly that, even like the first reaction could have pushed it up really high, comes back down when it fills that resting order, and it doesn't go as high on the next test. So it's the same kind of principle here. The selling is running out, but there is enough to show that there's a reaction from this level, and then it gets broken to the upside. And then on H4, same thing. We have a bit of a range that's formed now at the previous range high, like so. Looks bullish, but I'd want more price action on this time frame just to go sideways. Put some higher lows in locally, some higher highs and that kind of stuff before I'm looking long. And then, oops, on H1, I don't think it's worth going below those time frames. You can see the range is a bit clearer here. And then you've got another kind of like little range at this point where price drops down below it. Technically speaking, it's broken. Sorry, it's come off of a decision point. So there was a decision made at this point to push above this high and not respect it. Comes back down, pushes back up. So yeah, this is clean as well. I think this is probably going to come back down towards this sort of 2.76 level, and then put some sideways price action in, and then I would look for some reversal signs to go long from if I was trading XRP. But yeah, at the moment it needs a bit more price action. You mentioned FTR at the beginning of the stream. Is that a concept average or beginner trader should dive into, or is there anything to it? Yeah, I mean, it was on Bitcoin that I talked about that, wasn't it? Basically, it is just a nuance of a supply or demand zone. So this is a FTR here. So it's basically where price, you have a barrier here, like resistance, price pushes up, makes a cluster, and then, yeah, so makes a cluster. It doesn't return to the beginning of the move. Shit. It fails to return and pushes to the upside. But it's basically a continuation pattern. If you're learning how to read ranges and then how to read the reactions around the limits and the breakouts and fake outs, you don't need to worry about that too much. But I can send you a video I made for BTG years and years back if you like, mate. So just send me a message and I'll send you a link to that because I actually have it on YouTube. I think yeah, I've got it on YouTube. So I'll send you a link to that. And anyone else who's interested, I can send you. It's only like a 5-minute bite-sized video, but it'll go through it in a bit more detail. The thing is with price action trading, you'll have so many different people will call it different things, just different names for the same things. In ICT language, you call it order blocks, and you have breakers, and we have all that kind of stuff. But it's, however, whatever marketing spin gets put on it, basically. But they are decent levels. I think there was a Forex group as well, and they called it the bullet. I can't remember what were they called. I came across them on YouTube and like on an FTMO interview, someone was trading their system and being profitable trader. But essentially what they do is exactly the same thing. You get a bit of resistance, you have some sideways price action, you wait for a breakout. But what they would do is wait for they would wait for 2 candles in a row to break out. And then they would go long on the retest of the FTR high, if you like, or the range high. They would go long with a stop below it and then catch the continuation. They would call that a bullet. So again, like whatever marketing people want to call it, but I've called it FTR because that was the terminology that's been around for the longest, basically since like plus 10 years. But you know, when people get to learn this, and I popularized that in CT, the FTRs, and then people kind of start calling it different things and they market it in their own way. But essentially, getting down to the brass tacks of it, it's just a range breakout, like close to resistance or support, a decision to break it, a decision not to return from where it came from. But if you can just read ranges sideways, then that does the job. All right, we're nearly at an hour. Has anyone got any other questions or any other charts you want me to look at? Otherwise, we can wrap it up. Chris would like to check it out as well. Yeah, send me a message, mate, on Twitter, and I'll send you the link. But yeah, this is quite strong, Bitcoin. We'll see how this reacts. I mean, I'm not trading it, but we'll see how this reacts. All right. Seems like that's it. All right, guys. Been a pleasure. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Also, don't forget this is sponsored by Watt Exchange. It's non-KYC, perp decks. You will get a 20% rebate on the commissions I make through you signing up on my referral link. So there's just free cash to put into your trading account, essentially. So if you ever wanted to earn from the volume that you make on an exchange, there's your chance. So link is in the description. Or you can go onto Watt Exchange and sign up and use TraderMatt as the code. Ali Khan, thanks, Matt. Thank you for joining. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Linky. Thank you, everyone else who hasn't said hello that is here. But yeah, that would help the channel out, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's a very clean platform, and they're listening to me with some of the tips and stuff that I've got as a trader on how to improve the usability of it. So that's cool as well. So yep. Take care, guys. I will see you next Monday, and there'll be a video out on the channel on Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.